The European Union started as a peace project. This peace project is under threat. Populism. Tensions between ethnic and religious groups have grown. European values are openly questioned. PAX is a European peace organization based in the Netherlands. Similar to the European Union, we have been founded to bring inclusive peace for Europe. Inclusive peace that goes beyond absence of violence. Peace that is strongly rooted in European values. A year ago, we have developed a report outlining 4 possible scenarios for the future of Europe. We have also created an animation.
The European Union is facing many challenges. The financial and migration crises, Brexit, the rise of populist and nationalist parties, EU values such as democracy, rule of law and human rights are under threat. The relationships with Russia and the US under President Trump have deteriorated. What will the EU look like in, say, 2040? Will people still respect EU values, or will they be disregarded? Will the EU further integrate or disintegrate? Peace organization PAX identified 4 possible scenarios for the future of Europe.
So, 4 scenarios. My colleague, Dion van der Berg, has been working on peace building in and outside Europe for decades. He will explain to us why lack of action and what lack of action will mean for us as Europeans. Dion? Dion? Dion, it's time.
I'm coming.
Dion?
Just a minute.
What, a minute? That sounds pretty ambitious. A minute? 1 minute it is.
Scenario 1. Paranoid Android. EU values are increasingly disregarded, but the EU continues integrating. The EU focuses on security and stability for its citizens, prioritizing security over civil liberties. This superstate is in full control by means of internal surveillance and strict external border control. It is an inward-looking union, afraid of dangers from the outside world.
Well, so that's the challenge, to elaborate on each of these 4 scenarios in just 1 minute. There we go. In this scenario, we clearly see a few elements that we also see in the responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. There's the securitization, the border control. There's the risks of privacy, lack of privacy, the civil liberties being under threat. That's the things we see. Well, there's a focus on negative peace, an inward-looking Europe that's only talking about the absence of violence and not about the positive interpretation of peace. It would be bad news for the Western Balkans, and it would be bad news for Ukraine and Belarus. So this is not what we want. Will the EU still be this example to the rest of the world? Will it still be the beacon of democracy, of human rights and of prosperity? Probably not. This is not what we want for Europe.
Scenario 2. United States of Europe. EU values remain and the EU continues integrating. In order to remain relevant on the global stage, where China and India continue to rise, and to overcome international challenges such as climate change, Europe is a federation of European states. It has its own armed forces, a proper government, and it collects taxes. Externally, the EU prefers a soft power approach and avoids the use of force. Yet, some groups of citizens feel ignored. For them, a federal Europe only serves the elites.
United States of Europe. Many people claim that this COVID-19 pandemic shows that we need more political integration. But as long as we continue to see the European Union primarily as an economic project with financial benefits, then that will not happen. We need to go back into the early days of the European Union when people had a proper understanding of positive peace, not only the absence of violence, but true democracy, human rights, equal opportunities for all, and solidarity. Now, that is not only the political integration about the institution, it's about the citizens as well. And we strongly feel as PAX that citizens should take their responsibility and should help revitalize these European values bottom up and show and give the example to the governments and the politicians that indeed there is an opportunity now to take the next step in the process of political integration.
Scenario 3. East, West, North, Best. EU values remain, but the EU no longer exists. North-South and East-West disagreements have taken their toll. Europe consists of a number of loose regional networks, of which the North European Union, the NEU, is the most prominent. Through modern technology, European governments have brought decision-making closer to their populations. There is no structural collaboration on foreign, security and defense policy or justice and home affairs. Only NATO remains. Powers such as China and Russia have gained influence. Overall, this European network experiment is fragile.
East, West, North, Best. In a way, this is what we do see happening at this very moment in Europe. We've had these negotiations with Italy and others in the south who wanted to have more compensation for the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. We've seen Hungary and others in Central Europe not willing to take their share of the distribution of asylum seekers over the European Union as a whole. With regional alliances, we also see regional peace arrangements. Now, will they be sustainable? We fear, as PAX, they will not be sustainable. We fear there will be a lot of influence from other countries. We will be vulnerable to the influence by Russia, by China, by others. And indeed, most of all, we will lose the role we play as an example to the world.
Scenario 4. All against all. EU values are being disregarded, and the EU has continued to disintegrate. The EU and NATO have fallen apart. Growing inequality and poverty have led to polarization, distrust and populism, and structural European cooperation has broken down. States pursue their own short-term security and economic interests. There is social unrest, violent extremism, separatism, and numerous international points of tension and conflicts, leading to war.
Well, all against all. Definitely the most disastrous scenario for Europe. It would take us back more than 100 years into European history. And people might say it will never happen, but who would have expected that Brexit would take place, say 10 years ago? Nobody would have expected Brexit to take place, but it did. And we cannot take peace for granted. There's a threat to peace, especially if populists continue to grow and narrow-minded national sentiments take over from principles of European solidarity, democracy, and human rights. And there's the risk. And we need to defend ourselves, and we need to mobilize as citizens so that we can help bottom up, work for peace, show that we want peace, and ensure that the governments and the politicians also make the same choice to go for peace.
Well, 4 minutes, job's done. That's a wrap.
Well, thank you, André. But of course, time keeps ticking, even without the clock. And time is ticking for Europe, time is ticking for peace in Europe. And the motto of the European Union is united in diversity. There's so much of a diversity in the history, in the interest, in our experiences. And to have a strong basis to continue working on Europe and the European Union, we need that peace. No better common ground for Europe than the value of peace. So please join us in revitalizing Europe as a peace project.